best ball. I'm done with that.
Hey, team players, and welcome back. Sorry at Local Football Flavor, we had a little bit of a hiccup with multiple streams going out at the same time here, and it caused issues, so we ended up just having to make a new one. Here we are here. Hopefully everyone will be able to jump over correctly. We're going to be covering Black Monday, all these coaches getting fired. Obviously, we'll be doing some best ball drafting here. But, Bob, I'm starting with something that any true pet peeve that someone has, like when done correctly, you don't realize you have it until you're in the middle of being triggered by it.
Okay.
And that happened to me repeatedly yesterday. I'm going to start off with, at one point,
coming in hot,
roughly 4:30 yesterday, I was screaming at my TV, specifically the red zone, "You're using it wrong." Now, to Tarantino this stuff to go to the beginning. The definition of the word clinch means that you won something of value and someone else later has an opportunity to take it from you in a following week. You cannot clinch anything in week 18. You can win something, but you cannot clinch it. For instance, the Jacksonville Jaguars clinched a playoff berth weeks ago after a Colts loss. Why does that count as a clinch? They were going to the playoffs and no one could do anything about it, and they had a chance. Yesterday, the Jacksonville Jaguars did not clinch the NFC South. They won the NFC South. And using that word incorrectly ignited me for 4 hours of just could not handle it. Use the word correctly. It's most problematic in the NFL, but use it correctly. You cannot clinch anything in the last day of a season.
You know what you can't clinch, though? What you can't clinch? Your butt cheeks. Because
that was a Steelers game thing.
The Steelers won a meaningful game in December for like the first, or January, right? For the first time. For the first time in a long time. I cannot tell you, like, my wife went to sleep. My little boy was asleep. And I cannot tell you how quiet I had to be and why I was texting so vehemently what was going on in that game. I could not fathom how bad at points in time it felt like the Steelers were being coached. And then, like, when you hear
3 Lamar bombs like that.
They had Lamar dead to rights like 8 times in that game. And it was so funny to see just like the way the reactions of everybody in the stands and everything. And you're just like, are you serious right now? I just kept texting, are you serious right now? Are you serious right now? The game last night was absolutely insane, Jason. I'm sitting there and I have to be quiet. Okay. So I have to be really, really, really quiet because the little boy's asleep, wife's asleep. And when the Steelers got that last touchdown, and I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, yes. And Boswell missed a kick. I was like, you can't write a script better than this. You cannot write a script in January better than this. And then they go down and Luke misses the field goal. After being rammed by Justin Tucker like a whole bunch of times in meaningful games, it's nice to see that the Baltimore kicker also missed it. But the cryptic words of Mike Tomlin in the post-game interview about aunts and uncles.
So basically what the question that Tomlin got sent to him was, how do you feel that everyone would hate you had that kick not been missed?
I mean, well,
he basically was trying to figure out a way to say it is what it is.
Before we talk about the Super Bowl and possible Super Bowl lineups and our favorite top 12 for the next draft, and also for our best balls coming up, is the crazy thing that I read. And it's like, I love going on the AFC North meme war, and I also love going to like the Pittsburgh Steelers subreddit, right? And when you're on those websites, when you're on those things, I want you to walk through this conspiracy theory with me, Joe, okay? And everybody else. Aaron Rodgers used all 3 timeouts.
Yes.
Prior to the last minute of the game, right?
Yeah, 2 of them because of his helmet.
2 of them because of the helmet. Now, He says that he actually didn't necessarily need the helmet, but it was hard to call with all those heavy people on the field. It was hard to call like the audibles at the line like he likes. So he wanted to make sure he got the play right from the coaching staff. So then you come down, and what's Mike Tomlin's favorite thing to do to kickers?
Oh, the icing it.
Ice them, right? Well, they didn't have a timeout to ice loop.
That's right.
But imagine if they had a timeout to ice loop left. Rodgers blew one of them early in that second half.
That stadium would have burnt to the ground.
And he missed it, and then they would give him a second chance. I mean, come on. That is Pittsburgh Yinzer conspiracy like I have never seen it in my life before. Now, Jason, on to this thought here. I don't think the 49ers are good enough.
I don't either. I don't think they're getting out of Philly.
Watching that game on Saturday and thinking about the 49ers. Now, do I have a question about the 49ers offense? No, I really don't. Right? So when I look at the 49ers offense and I say,
by the way, we're going to fire up our first draft here at 4:07 Eastern.
Is this team capable with an offense of doing well in a postseason run? I think absolutely the offense is perfectly capable of doing something like that. But when we look at this defense, they lost Bethune again, and it just it does enough things right. But also when there is an explosive offense on the field, and Seattle is not one of them, when there's an explosive offense on the other side of the ball, I think it does paint a picture that the 49ers are in trouble. Likewise, while I am drafting Pats and 49ers in my playoff best ball scenarios, and I did have one with, where I have Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen and stuff like that too, which kind of sucks. They're playing one another. But when I look at the Pats too, I think that the Chargers match up fairly well against the Patriots. When you look at what the Patriots have done in the last couple of weeks, is there has been a lot of games where they haven't really had to fight things out.
That's true.
They don't really have an amazing pass rush. Since one of their better players on the line got injured a couple of weeks ago, they haven't been playing the run that well. Remember, when we were talking the first 7 weeks of the season, the New England Patriots were one of the top rushing defenses in the league. Mm-hmm. And now you look at it, and they're not that. Now,
right.
While the Chargers,
407 guys, fire it up. Bob, you ready?
Which one are you in?
The $3 DraftKings one.
All right, let me find it.
You ready?
So while
that for me, Bob,
your $3 best ball.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm in. See, it's doing that damn check location thing again that I was just bitching about.
Well, there's 4 out of 6 in, so check it fast. Overfilled.
All right, yeah. Well, I'm on the next one, so it's not me.
All right.
See, they did that again. I have not moved. Well, we're in one anyway, so we'll
yeah. So I'll put mine up on the screen because it's easier for me to show it that way.
So
we will go from there. Bob, continue your tale.
Yeah. So, Jason, how I feel about the Patriots is while I think that Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, again, this is an offense that is capable of moving the ball down the field in many different ways and in different capacities. Drake May is a great player. Nicholas, what's happening? So when I look at this right now from an offensive standpoint, the 49ers and the Patriots do have incredible offenses, but their defenses have question marks. And if another offense can exploit those defensive tendencies, then that's going to be problematic. And I do think that the matchup for the Chargers, while the Chargers aren't the best offense, and they do have a bunch of big injuries on the offensive line, they do push the ball down the field, right? And 49ers defense is not good. And when we look at the 49ers defense and we look at the Pats defense, where's the challenge for the Patriots defense recently? And also for the 49ers defense, it's not there. And we know that when you pair a good offense with a good defense, you are more likely going to win the Super Bowl. When you pair a good defense with a bad offense, you have a little bit of a shot. But when you pair a good offense with a bad defense, then you have the Detroit Lions. And that did not turn out well for the Detroit Lions. So when you go back in and you look at building these teams, right, is the matchup that the 49ers got this week it doesn't necessarily it won't necessarily expose their defense, because I'm not quite sure that Jalen Hurts will.
Danny, you're completely right. That 49ers defense is bad.
I'm not quite sure that Jalen Hurts will take advantage of this to the
Saquon will.
That they
and I think we might be seeing my first draft here, Bob, that has Saquon going on my team.
But Saquon will, and there's a high chance that AJ Brown will as well. So like that's where I'm at right now, where I'm looking at it and I'm saying, I don't think it where I've built Philadelphia teams before. I think that the matchup with Carolina is definitely, or not the matchup with Carolina, the matchup with the Niners really paints a good picture for Philadelphia. Now in the room that I'm in, Matt Stafford just went 2 overall. So
Bob, you still did. You should have pulled out, because now you're going to be distracted by a different draft here.
Keep your head on a swivel about that. And then the other point is too, I do think that the winner of Buffalo, the winner of the Buffalo Jags game, I think is going to go to the Super Bowl from the AFC side. I think that both of those teams defensively,
I agree with that,
played pretty well, but I think that Trevor Lawrence and the Jags offense is stronger than what we have for the Buffalo Bills offense right now. And I think that all things considered, that if you get the opportunity, take AJ Brown here. So we have Saquon and AJ Brown. When we look at the opportunities that these teams have to be successful, when we think about Super Bowls, the other part of it here too, Jason, is I like the Rams as well, but the Rams do have some chinks in the armor when it comes to their back end of their pass defense. They have allowed some decent room for pass catchers. Now
that they have, but I still think the Rams are probably the most complete team.
I don't think that Carolina takes advantage of that by any means the second time around, like they did the first time around. But I'm also not going to say that in a drag them out fight that the Rams are head and shoulders better than anybody else in the NFC right now. I do like them from an offensive standpoint. I really do. I think they have a lot of ways they can kill you, but that defense needs to kind of stand up a little bit. And that's the kind of the benefit that you get from teams like the Jags, from teams like Buffalo, that their defense can crunch down if necessary. And I'm not entirely sure that might be necessary on the NFC side of the ball. But if they run up against Philly's going to be a tough matchup because their defense does clamp down. While their offense isn't stellar, sometimes it's something to consider. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
So, I mean, for me, Jason, I really do think that I have from the AFC side of the ball, whoever wins that Buffalo Jags game, sleeper pick here. And I know they're the talk of the town for some people, would be Houston. If Houston can get by the Steelers, their defense is good enough to stop any one of the offenses remaining in the AFC. So I think that puts them into a good position to be successful. On the NFC side of the ball, again, I like the Eagles. I think the Eagles are a team that when the going gets tough, they will be successful, especially from a defensive perspective. Again, Seattle defensively is very strong, offensively not as strong. But they can produce some offense when they need to. When we look at the other side of the coin there for the other teams, you have Carolina, you have Green Bay, and Green Bay is not strong defensively right now with the loss of Micah Parsons. And that's really going to affect them a lot. And their offense isn't good enough, I think, to work within the boundaries of having that deficit at defense, Joe. So, I mean, like, I build it out and I build some of those teams out, but from a structural standpoint, like, there's only a couple of teams that I really do think are going to make it to the Super Bowl. The problem is that if those teams do make it and they clamp down on defense, like, the matchup in the Super Bowl might be a little bit lower scoring from a fantasy perspective.
But that part doesn't matter because everyone's confined in the same roles. The most important part is getting there. I mean, so you guys are seeing in the one I'm doing where I'm taking best available for really the first 5 rounds.
That's fair.
Unless Hunter Henry's there, because I think he's the best tight end in terms of the fantasy game going right now.
Well, I would disagree with that. I think he's a good low-cost tight end there.
Well, now he's a 5th round cost.
Yeah. And also, I think that Colson Loveland has if you need a tight end in these DraftKings drafts, Colson Loveland's a great pick.
I love Colson Loveland as a second tight end.
Especially with the unknown factors of how healthy those wide receivers are going to be for Chicago in their matchup. And they're going up against Green Bay. And like I said, again, that's a divisional matchup. But building a late motherfucker took Dallas Goedert from me, you piece of shit.
Angry Bob, angry.
Well, yeah, because this guy has Sutton, Nico, Kittle, and Allen, and then takes Goedert.
I don't believe in staying in your lane either.
Well, no, I had a whole Philly stack built out. And
that's what I'm saying. That would be staying in your lane, would be honoring someone else's. I like being the wild card at some of these. Wild cards get spicy, baby.
Wild cards do get spicy. That's true. All right. Do we want to play? Yeah, we're going to play from that perspective. So I do think that when it comes down to these Super Bowl matchups, that I really do want to target a little bit more Philly, like I was doing a little bit earlier. I want to target some Jags. I do want to target Buffalo. The problem with Buffalo is that offensively, none of those pieces really kind of, if you can't get both Josh Allen and Cook, it's kind of cooked because you're not really quite sure which one of those pieces is going to get out. And if you take too many Buffalo pieces, you're definitely not going to be getting out of the first round. So you kind of want to be very careful and cognizant of that fact is if you make it to the Super Bowl, you're going to win. But you've got to get there first.
Sure do.
And I think that if you buy too much Buffalo, that it's going to cause you some damage. And same thing too that I was just saying that I have this big Eagles stack going up here, but there's no way that it's going to that all these players are going to be successful in that matchup. Like I could see maybe 3 of them, but the odds that both Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, and then triply so that Dallas Goedert would do well it's got a lot of question marks there. But I'm gonna build you out. We're gonna build out a Philly Jags Super Bowl, and then we're gonna put in. If we make it, we're gonna do QJ too. I think QJ going up against Christian Gonzalez. Yeah, that could be a tough matchup. Ladd's probably got a good matchup coming up here too. So while I don't think that's going to be like the best thing is to build out a lot of Chargers, I think that could work out well. A lot of people are sitting on Josh Jacobs, Joe. Last week I ended up getting Josh Jacobs like in the last round. And like I said, I don't think that Green Bay makes it very far, but he can be a piece against Chicago's defense that you would want to have this week. So just pretty interesting.
He can get you out of a round. I mean, think about it. This is all just about getting out of the first round, really.
Yeah. You son of a bitch. I'm not a tight end. Piece of shit. We're gonna take DeAndre Swift. I'm in a cutthroat room over here.
Oh, I love those, man. Schultz is another guy that I like late.
Well, I like Schultz against the Steelers defense for sure. Like, I mean, unequivocally, that's a great matchup for him. And the only question is you have is like, what's the weather's supposed to be okay-ish next week.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world.
So it definitely isn't the end of the world if it rains or something like that. So I'm just gonna, and honestly, like in DraftKings, if you're able to build out a little bit of Steelers, hey, why not?
I think Kenny Gainwell is a late pick as a fine get you through the first round.
My yesterday, the first draft afterwards, I was queuing up my people and wasn't paying attention to the board, and in Underdog it took Kenny Gainwell in the first round for me. So
oh, that's rough.
I made it back with some Jags and stuff, but that was rough. I was not paying attention, and then I got really screwed. So that kind of was not fun. All right. So we're gonna have to build out Gadsden here on my end. This guy took Herbie and QJ, so I'm definitely gonna have to get Gadsden if he doesn't take him here. He has a weird team too. Like this one's wild, Joe. This is Bo Nix, Harvey, Adams, Kyron, and Puka with a back end Justin Herbert.
Is Perry still hurt, Bob?
He was hurt this past week, yeah. Josh, you're asking about MVP here. And we're going to answer this after we're done queuing up these picks in the draft here. I think there's a lot of candidates for MVP. I think that one of the top ones for MVP is probably going to be Trevor Lawrence. After all the shit that I've ever given to Trevor Lawrence in my life, I do think that it stands to reason that he will at least be in the conversation. I think that Drake May will be in the conversation. Josh Allen is always in the conversation. Do I think that he is head and shoulders above the others in that conversation? No, not necessarily. But I think that when you look at the things, and again, like Coach of the Year is probably going to go to a guy like Liam Cohen.
Oh, it should go to Liam Cohen.
The Jags have been a surprise since the middle portion of the season. To be honest with you, and so it's very interesting to see the growth in that team in just a short amount of time, to be honest with you. So it's like, I'm having a hard time here. I got to get a flex, another flex. Oh, shit. Not getting Dallas Goedert really screwed me. Really.
Up front.
Well, it really screwed me to the degree that, like, I like having that Eagles mega because it is so easy to build, and there are going to be a lot of Eagles potentially if they make it to the Super Bowl. But not getting that tight end, I have to build some other matchups, and people are really buying into some of these other guys. If I don't get that, I'm going to have to build a back end Steelers. Probably. If I don't get Woody Marks here. I don't really know how to feel about Woody Marks right now, especially if he goes up against Philly.
Well, yeah, the Steelers have shut down some impressive running games. If you take out the first run that King Henry had, it wasn't really that impressive a game for him.
No, it wasn't. I think Gainwell just went in this draft too. Yeah, he went right after my pick. Son of a gun. This guy, I'll be livid if this guy takes someone that I want here. So I just need one more player from Houston. There we go. We'll take them. That's fine. And like I've said earlier, guys, and for anybody out there that's doing this on DraftKings and not Underdog, is that if you believe that Philadelphia is making it to the Super Bowl, I don't know how many pieces from the other side of the ball that I actually want. Because
it's a fair point.
Because from an offensive standpoint, I think that whoever's there will get clamped down. So it's like, is there a benefit from taking a bunch of guys? I don't think so. I will draft a back end.
All right, so Bob, next time if you're not in the same draft that I'm in, don't do another one because you get so distracted during it.
Well, I did get distracted by it, but well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through some of the possible MVP picks here, Joe, before we rack up another one.
Okay, I'll go through the MVPs now. So realistically, Josh, let me put it this way: my money right now is on May. So, and I see that you got your little Brady boy picture there, but I actually think it is Drake May. I understand the argument against the New England schedule super soft. Crying out loud, they lost to the Raiders in week 1. But there is so much love behind the Patriots. And remember, that vote happened today. All the people who put those votes in just did them. So I think that the Drake May impressive season is certainly more impressive than Bo Nix. There is an argument that can be made for Lawrence, but I think Lawrence has too much old baggage on him for people to actually give him the vote. I still think that Stafford has a chance, but he probably lost it when he lost to Seattle and lost the 1 seed.
When Stafford lost to Seattle,
I think it goes to Matt.
So I just want to kind of like talk about this for a minute. And when we look at the Jags, throughout the entirety of the season, right, is that truthfully, nobody truly believed in them until they got Jacoby Myers. Okay.
And his numbers weren't good until they got Myers either. No, they won. They beat Kansas City in week 4. That was surprising. But people wrote it off as a Kansas City bad game.
No. So this is who they face, right? They beat the Panthers week 1, lost to the Bengals, beat the Texans week 3, beat the 49ers week 4, beat the Chiefs week 5, lost to Seattle week 6, lost to the Rams by a bunch week 7, week 8 beat the Raiders, lost to the Texans, beat the Chargers, beat the Cardinals, beat the Titans, beat the Colts.
So they've only lost to
the Colts. So when we look at it and we say like, okay, yeah, like statistically speaking, Trevor Lawrence might not have had a better season than Drake May. We're looking at 29 touchdowns through the air, a couple rushing touchdowns as well. And then when we look at Drake May, comparatively speaking, we have 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3,000 more yards. But I have to wonder is that if their defense, if they didn't have those defensive injuries, Joe, how good would the Patriots have actually been? Because they did play very well throughout the entire year. They lost that.
Well, the team I just built, Bob, needs to have the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So
nail biter to Buffalo, they lost. They lost week 1 to the Raiders and week 3 to the Steelers. And bad losses as well. But then you look at the rest of it, and again, the argument is like, oh, if they had an easier schedule, if they had a tougher schedule, whatever, you play the schedule that you're given, and you can only win the games that are on your schedule. So it's like, yeah, the AFC East, it was a dumpster fire this year, sure, but they did a lot. So Drake May probably has the leg up in the MVP race, to be honest. Stafford is a nice, cool 2. I do think that back end Trevor Lawrence is interesting. Here are the NFL regular season MVP odds according to FanDuel, Joe.
Let's hear them.
We have Matthew Stafford at -180, Drake May at +145, Trevor Lawrence at +30,000. Justin Herbert at +50,000.
Yeah, that's how you know they're not winning.
Bo Nix, Caleb, and JSN at all +50,000.
See, I really do think Stafford lost it when they didn't get the bye. But I also understand the let's vote it for him on the Hall of Famers last hurrah. I get that too.
I mean, statistically, when you look up his stats.
By the way, we're going to start a new one at 4:31 Eastern. You're done, right, Bob?
When you look up his stats, he clearly had the better stats, the better counting numbers at least. 46 touchdowns, almost 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and almost 5,000 yards. Has there been a quarterback that has thrown for 45 plus touchdowns and not won MVP?
Probably. I mean, Manning and Brady went against each other a lot.
Well, yeah, in that circumstance, yes. But
right.
I don't know. I think he legitimately probably has the best shot, but I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't count out Trevor. I wouldn't count out Drake May. And they had just as good of a year too. So I mean, like, bad.
All right,
Boston.
so Bob, it's 31. Are you done with your draft?
Yeah, we're done.
All right. So in the meantime, let's just do it now. 3, you ready?
On what? The $3 one?
The $3, 20 cap entry.
All right, ready?
1, 2, 3. 3 entries. Hopefully we're in the same one here.
I should be in at the very minimum. I should be in. Now, yeah. So Josh, let us know who you think as well.
I'm in the same one as me here, Bob.
What?
Are you in the same one as me?
I don't know. Mine is still not loaded. So.
Nope, mine just fired. So bail out of yours.
Oh, mine has 6 out of 6. I can't.
Bob, killing me, man. How did we both hit the button at the same time and not get in?
I'm telling you, DraftKings has an agenda against me right now.
DraftKings hates Bob. That's what we're hearing.
It's a fact. So, Jason, when we look at the top 12 picks in order in 8 months, I think that we can do that with enough reasonable accuracy that we couldn't give you the top 12, but we could probably give you 12 players that will be within the boundaries of the parameters of the first round.
Yeah.
And we're talking redraft only, not draft only. We don't want best ball rankings and whatnot. We just want to get some love in there.
So we'll just go through let's go through this year's first round, and you just tell me real quick, Bob, their first round next year or not. Chase.
Yes.
This is not the order of it. It's all come down. Gibbs.
Yes.
Bijan.
Absolutely. He's the number one pick in my mind.
J. Jeff.
No.
Collins.
No.
Lamb.
He's on the cusp, I think. Lamb, yeah.
BTJ.
No.
Neighbors.
He could be a dog with Jackson Dart, but he's probably like second round.
Puka was at the end of the first round in a lot of things. He's obviously in it next year.
Puka's absolutely in the first round.
And then let me think of some guys who were not in the first round that will be.
So we have Jamar, Bijan, Gibbs, CMC, Amon-Ra, Puka, Achane. Yes, Devin Achane's going to be up there as well. Then
he will be, especially if he's got a real coach.
Once you get past pick 7, pick 8, then you have a reasonable argument to make that depending upon health and quarterback situation, that if Trey McBride gets a quarterback that's going to throw him the ball, I think that you have Trey McBride being a top 12 pick. Then, hold on, let me queue up a couple of players here. We got Puka again. Like, when you're drafting number 1 overall, I could see an argument for a guy like Christian McCaffrey, but like, it sucks because Puka is like probably the only Ram you're going to get at this point in time, because everybody is going to, the time to build like mega Rams has like passed in certain rooms.
Yeah, can't really do it anymore.
No, you really can't. That was wild. JSN fell all the way to the 2-4 in my draft.
Wow.
So the guy got Josh Allen and JSN.
Guy's afraid of having buys in their first round.
Well, Josh Allen and JSN, if it's Seattle Buffalo, like it probably could be. That's
dude, I'm more and more. I think Jacksonville gets Buffalo.
I think it's very possible. I think it's very, very possible.
I'm going to build a. No, Myers just went off the board. I can take that back. I'm not going to build that.
I absolutely love. Here, Joe, you got to show your screen, man. You're not up.
Oh, my bad. Give me a second. I'm in a panic right now, guys.
Yeah, family. It does, and if you log into a lot of other content too, is that when other people, when we're looking at right now, it's kind of the dead zone of the season because it's like, okay, we're wrapping up some of the early best balls. The big board doesn't come out until a little bit later. This guy screwed us up. He's got Josh Allen, JSN, and ETN. Hell no, that's a pretty great three beginning starters there. But if he doesn't get Trevor, I don't understand what he's doing here. So before we get to this question, family, I just want to finish up talking about early look aheads here. I do think that you're also going to get James Cook in the top 12 guys. There's a very reasonable argument that you can make that his touchdown equity was so high this year, and he might be on the cusp of being back end first round because he's not getting that receiving work. But I do think that you can make a reasonable argument to put James Cook in the top 12 this upcoming year. And I do think there's a reasonable argument that you can make that a guy like Chase Brown with his touchdown equity is also going to, at times in certain drafts that you're going to be having, he's going to also be making it into that top 12. When I look at wide receivers, I like I said, you have your CD, your Amon-Ra, your JSN, your Chase, and your Puka. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you have the 5 running backs, Bijan, Jameer, JT, McCaffrey, Achane, plus Cook at the 6th. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying that's probably going to be very interesting moving forward. All right, so we got to get Goddard here. And we couldn't build that back end. Let's build Stevenson. I didn't get Saquon on this one. We got a little Puka action, but and I do think logistically, when we look at Justin Jefferson, it's really going to depend on what kind of quarterback that they end up getting in. So if they decide to go again with JJ McCarthy and ride with him, I think that it's possible that JJ McCarthy can be successful. I mean, out of all of the shit that the Minnesota Vikings were dealing with this year, Joe, still ended up with close to a winning record. So it was very unusual because they were led by that defense that was actually very good towards the back half of the season. So when we look at what's when we look at like player capital and stuff like that, I think that Justin Jefferson does have a pathway to be a top 20 pick. But I think after this year and what we saw out of him this year, there's going to be a lot of people that is going to be a big question mark for them. And that is that going to be, is that going to stick with him, or is that going to make him fall further? Like if he becomes a second round pick, I absolutely think I would take it. Right, if he becomes a second round pick. But if he's still a first round pick though, and the quarterback situation is still relatively the same, I really don't want anything to do with that, if that makes sense.
It does.
So it's like I've got a very big decision to make here. Oh, you bastard. All right, we're gonna screw with somebody else then. I don't have a very good running back in this one, so this one's probably cooked.
Well, if the Niners get eliminated, this lineup gets eliminated.
That's fine. I mean, like like I said, anything can happen on a weekly basis, and we've talked about this before. If you guys were with us last week on my sick day, still getting over being sick when Joe wasn't with us, I did talk to you guys a little bit about how everybody was pushing Derrick Henry up into that 4th, 5th round, and anything.
They wait for a lot of 4th, 5th round picks.
Anything can happen at any time. Here we go with Kenny Gainwell coming out in the 7th round. So I do think that people are, that we undersell certain things a lot of times, but Juwan Jennings in the 8th round is wild to me. He did not go to the Brock Purdy guy. I don't know what the Brock Purdy guy is doing. He's got Brock, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and then some AFC pieces. I can't really fault him on that. If you take my pick here, I'm going to beat your ass.
Bob, you get so upset about these things.
Well, I need a running back that's going to get points and potentially make it past this round. But I don't have any running back for my Super Bowl lineup for my Super Bowl team here. So
I built the Niners with a mega 5 stack. Like I have Niners the whole way there. And then I just took pieces to get me the rest of the way if any of them are off.
That's fine. And to this point, family, when we look at where JJ is going to be drafted, if you think about JJ as being a 2nd round guy this upcoming year, and you're deciding between Justin Jefferson, Ashton Genty, Travion Henderson, Drake London, Nico, Neighbors, I mean, you can make an argument that you would draft Nico above Justin Jefferson due to the stability.
Collins has a lot of injury risk, though. I love what he does.
There is, like you said, Joe, there is injury risk there. It is present. So that's definitely.
Let me put it this way. If Houston fixes their offensive line in the offseason, which has to be their number 1 hit, I think Collins should jump ahead of J-Jeff. And again, I'm pretty much in the category of J-Jeff apologist at this point. But you have to be real that McCarthy is putting – yeah, McCarthy is definitely a burden here. And I want to point this one out here. I don't think London can go over J-Jeff. And this is 100% the same reason.
I think he can.
As bad as McCarthy is, Penix might be worse. And London has the same greater injury risk than J-Jeff. So, I mean, here's the difference. Like, we really break down between Penix and McCarthy. Penix is just blah. McCarthy at least will give you excitement with a big play here and then, and you know it's going to J-Jeff. So I would rather go on J-Jeff because of that. Plus, Atlanta's about to have a whole new regime. They bought into this guy, and they still got their coach fired. Yeah. There is something about you just not the. It's like Atlanta is for the dogs. Okay. They're not for the Hawks.
So when we look at it and said, what do you think London's outlook could be? Take him over J-Jeff Frosty. Is that I'm always a guy that is very interested in a player like Drake London because he sees so much volume. And if you're seeing a good amount of volume in an offense that may sling the ball, I think it's reasonable to invest in something like that. And I've taken many, many risks when I've drafted.
Yours yet. We're going to try this one more time. We got to get one where we're actually both together.
Yeah. Well, I've built a very weird back end draft, and It gives me the option for. It hinges on my belief that Jacksonville will make it to the Super Bowl, and that.
Well, some of these are just diversifying portfolios. And I need to do one without Henderson because I have Henderson in basically every lineup.
Hey, that's fine.
I think he's going to run right through the Chargers. There's no doubt in my mind about that. All right, let me know when you're ready to click go time.
All right,
give me a countdown.
Well, I just need to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we got our flex if that's the case.
Happy New Year, Donnie.
We should build
Jacksonville ain't making it out of the first round. Well, that's your resident family Buffalo lover right there.
Hey, I'm okay with.
But family, to be totally blunt with you here, you have to admit, as a Buffalo guy, this is the worst roster Allen's taking into the playoffs, and that they had a bust on their first round receiver. I think we have to start admitting that kind of thing by now, and it is very sad.
That is true.
You can be rested all you want. The foot's still broken on the MVP.
Foot's still broken.
He might be the once and future MVP, but the former MVP has a broken foot.
All right. I'm done.
And they don't get to play a cold Buffalo this year. All right, Bob, you ready?
All right, hold on. I wanna say this. Happy Monday there, Daniel, as well. I want to say this about Jacksonville. And I've said it a little bit earlier, family. And, we've said this last week when we were talking about building your lineups, is that pod luck does go a long way, right? Pod luck makes a big difference in if a lineup is going to advance or not. You could have drafted with guys that are just taking advance rate pieces and they end up winning, and none of those lineups are going to make it. The one thing I will say about Buffalo in terms of best ball, is that I think Buffalo, like I said, Buffalo and the Jags are the teams from the AFC that I think are the most likely to make it to the Super Bowl. I think that their defenses are good and their offenses are good enough to really clamp down on certain types of players. Their defenses, of course, and their offenses, I think, are good enough with the playmakers that they have to be very successful. So it's a shame that they're the first matchup. It's a shame that they're the matchup that was given to them, because that could have potentially been the AFC Championship matchup. But when we look at it, and when we look at teams like Denver is very similar to them in that perspective, is that Denver has a defense that can clamp down when it needs to, and has a quarterback that wants to play hero ball a good chunk of the change. The weakness for Denver is that their rushing game, similar to the Jaguars, you can be complacent in it at some points in time and they don't rack up a lot of yards. The things about Buffalo to be very excited about is that Buffalo can run the ball down your throat 23 times a game, and they can win it that way. When I look at Buffalo and I see how this receiving core is worse than it was 12 months ago, I say that it was already bad 12 months ago, and it just hasn't improved.
I think that's fair.
So, when I look at the lineup, they have our dog Brandon Cooks. They have Josh Palmer. They have a bunch of players that are just that. They're just there they play football at an NFL level. They're very good football players, but are they good enough in the grand scheme of things? And I think that the matchup against the Jags will be very telling, because
that's it. I mean, if they can outscore the Jags, they can do it, because I don't think they can slow the Jags. So it comes down to
I think they can. I think their defense from a passing perspective is that they're good enough on the back end where they can stop Trevor Lawrence.
I don't think Buffalo can slow down the Jags.
And if they slow them down,
this was in my middle of my clinch argument that I was so angry about yesterday. This is actually like fuel to the fire. It was, and by the way, if you guys didn't watch this, go back to the beginning of the episode and watch how much the word clinch pisses me off. But it settled into me that Jacksonville's a good team. And I was not mentally prepared to have that as I was freaking out at the red zone.
Well,
and by the way, they did not clinch the NFC South yesterday. They won it.
So here's the thing here, family, about Mitchell Trubisky, is that former Steeler.
You got to click go on the next draft. You're going to start
former
Trubisky.
Steeler,
You're
former
going to talk Trubisky. I can't have this.
Mitchy Biscuits here. All I'm saying is I think that Buffalo legitimately, and like I said to you yesterday in text form, Joe, legitimately speaking, they have probably one of the best odds to get to the Super Bowl. And they have a good defense that they're going to be able to do that. And if Josh Allen can get healthy for next week, and this game, he doesn't have to play in the cold weather. So if he can get healthy this week, there's a very realistic argument that you can make that
Frosty, this is a very good point. In terms of the quarterbacks who aren't in the playoffs, this is Josh Allen's best chance.
It's his best chance.
No Mahomes, there's no Burrow, there's no Lamar. But we might be seeing that Drake May might belong and Lawrence might belong. So in a weird way, this first round could be the passing of the guard. We'll see. It's going to be interesting.
I just want to ready, Joe, before we get in there, I just want to lay this stat out there, okay?
Lay the stat.
All right. So we're all from the perspective of quarterback perspective, and we always look at these stats over the entirety of the season, right? But the last 4 games, the Jags have given up 33 pass attempts. While those pass attempts have not materialized into a lot of yards or into a lot of fantasy points, if you give Josh Allen 33 chances at getting into the end zone, there's a good opportunity that he's going to take to take one of those, 2 of those, 3 of those into the end zone. Now, on the other perspective of this, and this is why Buffalo is probably going to be a little bit, it's going to be an interesting matchup, is that the Jags over the last 4 games, while they've been giving up a lot of passing opportunities, they've been clinching down on the run. Only 18 total rushing attempts over the last 4 games per game. And if we take that and just look at the totals, that's 74 rushing attempts. And when we look at the passing attempts, like we were saying before, it's 134 passing attempts. So James Cook, this is probably the tougher matchup for James Cook if you're drafting James Cook in the first round, second round. But from the perspective of this game is probably going to be one of those games like a Detroit-Buffalo game that while the defenses can clamp down when they need to, different pieces from both of these teams can do well. The other thing to point out, Joe, is that even though they've been offering a lot of those pass attempts, right? Jacksonville has let up around 47 total receptions over the last 4 games. Buffalo's at 31 total in the last 4 games. So if Trevor Lawrence is going to be who the NFL wants him to be, this is going to be the game he has to show it in.
That's 100% true.
This Buffalo defense is actually very good against quarterbacks and against wide receivers. So the thing that they're very good at, Buffalo is very good against it as well. Again, over the last 4 games, Buffalo's defense has offered 14 completions on average. And again, that doesn't count for some shitty teams. When you look at the raw adjusted, it still paints a picture that this is going to be a tough game for Trevor Lawrence. That's why I said if they make it past Buffalo, that's why I think that the Jaguars can win the Super Bowl, because Buffalo's the toughest team right now in the AFC, and that includes Denver.
All right, perfect, Bob. You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Says 3 out of 6.
And it's telling me 0 out of 6. So it's just putting us in different ones. So get out of yours and see if you can get another one.
I can't. Oh, no, we're in it. Pick 1.
Okay, good.
Pick 1 and pick 2, baby.
1 and 2. Looky out.
Looky. The Bills kick up PA against Philly.
And by the way, this is how I love it. So I get to screw Bob and get screwed by Bob every single time now.
That's the thing, family, is that I will talk about Buffalo a lot. I think Buffalo, like I said before, I think Buffalo, I would rank it as being Buffalo, Philly, Jags, Seattle, Rams. Those are like my 5 teams that probably are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Denver is not good. Okay. Denver's advanced. Like, there is a good chance that Denver will be a one and done.
I really hope so.
Their defense is good, but it depends on who they're matched up against, to be honest with you.
It does. It does. So if you look at this from this perspective, it really all comes down to what do you think about the upsets? Can Buffalo win? Can Houston win? Can the Chargers win? I give the Chargers the lowest percentage out of all of the.
I think the Chargers can win. I think Chargers can win.
Oh, I think they get run up there in the cold Boston.
That's fair, right?
But if that were to happen, if the Chargers do win, they go to Denver.
They are the third best pass defense right now. But with the hobbling of Justin Herbert, there's a good chance that they don't rely on the passing game too much, and then they just get the rushing game because they're offering about 25 rush attempts over the past 4 games. So this is going to be a game where you're probably going to see a good amount of Amarion, a good amount of Kamani Vidal, and then without
a shock, I go first pick Puka Nacua because he's my dude.
We're going Saquon.
I like it.
We're getting spicy. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily think that Philly is a bad matchup for Christian McCaffrey.
I no longer think there are bad matchups for Christian McCaffrey.
No, by any means. Hey, what's up, Mick? Which deep roster players should us dynasty players be adding now that could see a big jump? We'll get to that question after this draft.
Colston
Loveland. He's not deep. He is just there.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
If Herbert
Wilson in Arizona had a really good resurgence, but I don't know. He's pretty deep in dynasty. Addison took a hit, but I bet he recovers.
I wouldn't call them deep dynasty assets, though, Joe.
Yeah, define how deep your league is, man. Like, how deep are you looking to get?
We're talking about, like, way deep. I would say if we're looking at guys outside the top 131, that I'm very interested in Tyler Algier.
That's fair.
A guy, we've talked about, deep, Joe, deep.
The quarterback who was the backup for the Packers, who's going to be a starter next year, would qualify then.
These guys are a bunch of dicks. Did you see?
Oh, Bob.
Holy
all right, well,
shit.
I'm taking 2 receivers then. Because I told you guys I was not going to take Henderson in this draft, and I'm going to stick with that.
Holy shit. Did you see that craziness? He took Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts.
He did. This guy ain't advancing. Just let it be.
I mean, he can.
I don't think he can.
I mean, he's going to build out Goddard. He's going to build out Devonta Smith, or he's going to build out Shakir and Kincaid. Take whoever he thinks is the best one off of that rip. That's fine with me. I think that when we look at even deeper than guys like that, I think that I'm still interested in guys like Trey Harris. I know that he didn't have a great season this past year. I'm still interested in guys like Braylon Allen, if we're talking about guys that are currently in the league right now. I think that Torrey Horton, again, when we're talking about dynasty, that might not be as deep because he's, a bit younger and probably got drafted. People are going to be really high on Malik Willis going into next year. I'm not buying the hype a lot. Phil Maffa, Jadon Blue,
Jadon Blue had a good week 18, but I need to see that Dallas actually likes him.
Javonte Williams being on a 1-year contract, is this going to be the final landing spot for Audric Estime? Will they bring in somebody else in New Orleans, or will they keep trying to run Audric Estime in the like they did the last couple of weeks of the season? I think that's interesting in terms of a dynasty perspective. I think that it's very comfortable. You could get rid of Jalen Milroe if he's on your roster in a dynasty perspective, because there's no way that they'll let Sam Darnold walk when his contract's up. And as always, the Packers wide receivers are always very, very interesting.
They're not interesting in a way you actually want them kind of way, though.
I mean, sure. But again, if it really depends on how those games shake down, in my perspective. So Diggs, Trevor.
Getting a running back in the second round.
Yeah. We need to take Trevor. Damn it. I'm surprised Diggs has kept falling. He just got picked up there. That 3-quarterback run there in the second round, though, really like this guy in the 4-hole just wants to screw everybody.
It's not messing with me at all because I'm also random.
Oh no, he's got Stevenson, Colson Loveland going high. That makes sense. I think he's going to be a good advanced piece this week.
I think so too. I thought I did that. He took him at 29. His ADP's in the 40s. So that's a reach. I mean, there's no way around it. See if he builds out Chicago. Because if you want to build out Chicago, it takes 4 because they're all in the 40s.
I don't think well, okay, so here's a player that I think is interesting enough, and we've talked about him last year, family, is Keandre Lambert-Smith. When we look at wow, San Francisco's quarterbacks haven't been. Brock Purdy's still on the board. I wonder if this guy takes him right now. Take Parker.
And Purdy and Jennings are on the board. I'm just gonna scoop that up and kind of walk away with it.
Yeah, you lucked into that one. That was
I
nice.
did. It's a whole lot better than taking a naked Caleb Williams.
True. I just gotta hope in this build. I gotta hope Jacksonville does win it. I might build a back end Houston here. Well, you're building Houston. I don't know if I want to fuck with you on that. But.
Yeah, I'm trying to build Houston, but it's so cheap. Yeah. There's only 5 picks left.
How many?
5. I only have 1 tight end on my board. Yeah, I gotta fix that now.
I have 2, but I didn't get Hurts, which kind of blows. I don't think you can draft that thin with KLS players that don't score often. Just almost not worth it. Giving up like 10 to 15 projected points each round. Yeah, I'm not talking for Mick. I'm not talking for playoff best ball. But like Keandre Lambert-Smith in Dynasty, I think is interesting to me from the perspective that there's a good chance that he could get a good run of things going into next year, and that's why I say like Trey Harris as well. You might have got yourself in the Pearsall too, Joe.
I already have stacked the receivers. I started this draft with Puka, Adams, and Collins. Pearsall, I did. That'd be a wasted pick here.
That's fair. All right, I'm gonna take. I don't know how I feel about that. So when Mick, we'll talk about that more too. I'm a little bit sidetracked right now, but I do think that that's a legitimately a very interesting question. So we're gonna go QJ here. So I might be able to swing a back end of that.
So see you go here. Who's your back end?
We're gonna take her. I kind of do like. Here's like the really like spiteful, weird guy in me is that I kind of just wanna in one of these that I do is just load up on Carolina on the back end. There's just like something that's like. I don't think that they make it to the Super Bowl at all, but it would be a delightful romp if they.
My soul actually hurts that you said that sentence. Like, if there's one person as a quarterback who does not belong in this playoffs at all, it is Bryce Young.
He doesn't. It's true.
Like, they literally tried to lose the playoffs. And if it wasn't for the like, first, how the hell? This is one of the things I loved about this. Neither one of those teams were playing on Sunday. And the division was decided without them. I love that. Yeah, I love that people cared about the Saints football again.
It was wild. So I would say, you bastard picking up Gatson, you piece of shit.
Oh, he's getting angry. His Chargers are going.
That really goes the goat there.
Goes the goat. Who the hell just took Stroud?
See?
Why are you taking a completely naked Stroud when you have Hicks? And the reason I know he's naked is because I have all of Houston. Screw it. I'm taking Higgins now. I'm not taking Higgins.
Do it. That's fine. We're gonna.
I'm going one quarterback. We're just going Purdy. And you took Gainwell. Literally, there goes my cue. It's going to take a hot minute.
Well, I mean, again, I wanted Gatson, and now the only Super Bowl I can really get here is Jags, Philly. I tried to build out a little bit of Chargers, but I don't have enough. I don't have enough Chargers to really paint the picture. I'm going to have to take a Shipley that's not going to really get me any points here. Could take a Bashal Tootin. That's fine, but I need some pieces to get to the next level. When I look at this question here, family, I almost did this, family. This would have been a hilarious Carolina-Pittsburgh build. I'll tell you what, if Carolina-Pittsburgh is the Super Bowl that we get, there's going to be a lot of people not watching that game.
That's not true. They'll just all be wearing black and gold. Steelers are still the third most watched fan base in the NFL.
Yeah, true. So when I look at the builds that we can get, and Mick also does a lot of these drafts as well on DraftKings and on Underdog. And if you look at how other different content creators spread the wealth and do the drafts as well, ideally there are two different approaches to it that I think we talked about last week, and I think that it needs to be said again. There are only two things that matter. I think the top teams would be Dallas and the Steelers in terms of people that travel. But when we talk about
the two highest tickets ever, when you account for inflation, were Steelers Packers, Steelers Cowboys. When you account for inflation,
that's a little wild. So let me get my piece that I want here. We're just gonna take Tootin in the off chance that he has a good game too. So when I see the different ways to approach, I could take Vidal too. Kind of maybe like that a little bit better. Maybe, yeah, show that up. When we look at the different ways to approach this, family, there are two things to play for. Obviously, you want to get past wildcard week, and then you want to have a live team in the Super Bowl. So we have talked about this a bunch of times, and when we were drafting last year,
I don't think I have a live team in the Super Bowl.
And when we were drafting last year, this was something that we talked about, is that there are always going to be teams that make it out and make it out of the pod, and they have maybe 2 or 3 pieces live because a Ladd McConkey goes off in the first round, but the Chargers don't advance.
Yeah.
Or Jaden Daniels has.
Remember, there is something like over 50% of the teams in the Super Bowl will only have one active player or less.
So the stats say that if you get to the Super Bowl and you have a maxed out lineup, what does that mean? That means that you have at least 5 players that can accumulate points, and that 2 of those 5 players is the quarterback and the running back for the respective Super Bowl team. So there are a bunch of ways to draft it.
My team can do it in a Houston Niners Super Bowl.
We've come, and I think that that's fine, because when you think about the strengths of San Francisco,
but the other part of this equation, Bob, I need to point out to you: 50% of the teams that make it there have 1 or no pieces left, which means it's really, really hard to advance multiple pieces, let alone 5. But if you do get all 5, you win it, which is my whole argument of you got to get all advancement pieces for the first 6 rounds. And then your last couple of rounds, you fill stuff out and hope.
So
like that tongs on your lineup, that's a pure hope they get there, and I got to fill in for a tight end.
Well, so that's kind of the go to think about, right? Is there an optimal strategy? I would say that some strategies are better than others, yes. But when it comes down to teams that you think are going to advance, this is one of the most open playoffs that you can have, and it's not like your Chiefs and Eagles of past. And there's not a really huge juggernaut.
But it's exactly right. There's not Kansas City guaranteed to make it.
But the
AFC is way weaker than the NFC.
But what you want to do is you want to have 5 live players. And in Underdog, in DraftKings, you also want to have, your quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, tight end, flex. So you want to have 6 players live, okay? And so you want to ideally have the players that are going to be, like if you think Jacksonville's going to make it, there's a strategy that you could say that you don't want to lose out on ADP, and you want to take as many Jaguars as you possibly can. Last year, Mick said 5 teams live, I think, for the Super Bowl. This year has 12, I'd say. Yeah. So when you look at it and you say from this perspective, right, is that how many players can you get through? That matters. But it also matters from like a macro perspective. It's this too, is that if you have AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley make it through to the Super Bowl, okay, there is a very good chance that somebody else has something better, which is Jalen Hurts, Saquon, AJ Brown. But there's also a chance that somebody has something worse. Maybe they only advanced like a Will Shipley. And will Shipley be the best scorer in the Super Bowl? Probably not. Then you have, let's say, for example, let's go through this and say this, family. Let's say Buffalo makes it to the Super Bowl. There are going to be a plethora of teams out there that have Josh Allen, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Palmer, Cooks, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, an amalgamation of those guys. So from that perspective, having all of those guys in the Super Bowl is great. But there is not a situation that I can think of that will allow you to draft all of those Buffalo players and also advance out of the wild card route, if you get what I'm saying. So there is when Buffalo makes it to the Super Bowl here, family, you want to have built out a an NFC contender on the other side that you think is going to be able to maximize your points in the first couple of rounds, but B, also has a chance to be in the Super Bowl as well. For example, if I'm drafting Buffalo,
Bob, I want to do another one. You got me pumped up about doing weird combinations, and I'm going to try to do this strict 3.
Yeah, go for it. I'm not going to do this one. All
right. You just going to call me out as I do it.
In the perspective that Buffalo makes it to the Super Bowl, the best matchup for Buffalo is probably San Francisco. But there's not a way that you can build Buffalo San Francisco without taking one of the lower end running backs. And in which case, if a James Cook makes it or if a Christian McCaffrey makes it, you are not in it. You are not going to be able to win that matchup because there is a couple players from every team that, depending upon the matchup of the Super Bowl that you get, you are going to need to have in order to win the Super Bowl. The idea here, and Mick knows this, you play to win the Super Bowl. And then there are teams that the draft room fails you, and you're just playing to advance that team. And you aren't going to make that team go to the Super Bowl potentially. But this right here, right, Mick, is that if this hits, if Buffalo and San Fran make it to the Super Bowl, you have CMC and Cook, you are probably going to win. Even without Josh Allen, you have a very good chance to win because you have the two best players from those two teams, right? And the fact that a guy like Joe, you're a little bit off to the side on the other end there.
My bad.
So when we look at this
in the draft
from this perspective, is that there is going to be a team out there, and we talked, Mick, you and I talked about this, family, I believe we talked about this too, and anybody else out there, if you were with us last week, is that there are going to be in Underdog and DraftKings a Josh Allen, James Cook lineup. Inevitably, there's going to be at least one or two of those scattered around pods every so often. Does that team make it? Because if Buffalo makes it to the Super Bowl, again, going under that supposition, then you're going to need both of those guys, potentially.
So, Bob, I'm telling you right now, my strategy is this for this draft. I'm doing 4 advancement pieces, and then the following 6 picks are going to be my 2 teams that I'm going to put through.
So, family, Joe and I vary on this, and I know, Mick, you and I have talked about this, and we talked about it last week in the draft that we did, is that I like to build out a core, but I also like to have some outs. For example, in this DraftKings tournament, where you need to take a tight end, there are groupings of players that I think from a tight end perspective that if you don't have them week 1, you're probably not going to advance. But I think that the team that has them also isn't going to have a lot of people live anyway. For example, Dalton Schultz is in an incredible matchup this week. Colston Loveland, similarly, in a great matchup this week. Brenton Strange, not in a good matchup against Buffalo, who doesn't offer a lot of points to tight end. So it is, if Jacksonville wins, it's going to be very likely that a lot of Brenton Strange teams are not going to be advancing. And there's a good chance that Colston Loveland will help advance a lot of teams on DK, but Chicago most likely will not win. Or if they do win and Colston Loveland advances you, you are going to have knocked out a good chunk of the teams with these tight ends that are remaining, right? And so, like, right here, family, Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth, all of those guys are potential winners. Because here's the other part, is that if somebody in your pod drafts that back end tight end or that second Rams tight end that scores 2 touchdowns in the wild card week, they're probably advancing, right? And if they have the Rams plus those back end tight ends, that's going to be great. And that's why it's fun to build out a lot of those Rams teams, because if I can get a combination of Puka, Devontae, Kyron, and
how the hell did Jigba just fall to me in the 2nd round?
Because he's a week 1 bye.
I know, man, but dude, love it.
I don't like it. I don't like building Saquon and JSN.
Those are advancement pieces, dude. I don't care. They're not going to play each other in the second round. It's impossible.
I get it. And this Puka guy is going to start building New England now, because that's been the kind of the way to go.
It's been a very common way to go. There's no doubt about that.
But I do think that what I like to do primarily is I like to have a primary team, or I like to have a Super Bowl in mind that I think is going to happen. And I like to be able to build out players that I think are going to be the best players from that team, right? So, like, if I get – the only time I'm really drafting Josh Allen is probably at the 5 and hope that I get Cook back, like Joe did last week. If I'm drafting Saquon, I think I'd take Saquon as early as 2, and knowing that I might be able to get A.J. Brown if he slides back past the Josh Allen, James Cook guy, and then you get a little bit of a variation in your team. And the thing is, too, is that there are going to be so many teams, and I was looking for the information that we gave to you guys last week. It's like I said, it's always good to have an AFC and an NFC, an AFC and an NFC side of things, so that you aren't like dead, right? So hold on, let's see here. All right, so this information is from 4for4.com, which is another great website. So the rates, according to them, and this table comes from Stephen Hoops, the roster construction for the Gauntlet, which was a 1,600 plus teams, 136 was the 0.08 finals. And quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, 2-2-2-2-3-3. So optimally in some tournaments, you want to have those tight ends be, because there are useful in the Super Bowl. And in terms of like diversification, right, like I was talking about earlier, is that there aren't going to be a lot of teams that have certain player combinations, and that's where you can get a little bit more unique on. Do you generally not have week 1 buys in your hypothetical Super Bowl? No, because it is very likely that that one of the number 1 teams gets to the Super Bowl. At least in the last 10 years, it's very likely that one of the first round buys make it to the Super Bowl. So I think that when we look at it and we say like, okay, like, yeah, if I'm drafting for an Eagles Super Bowl and I'm on DraftKings, taking like a back end Will Shipley, if I have enough advanced rate pieces before, makes a lot of sense. And I want to be able to fill out a Super Bowl roster. I want to have that. I want to be live for the Super Bowl. And some teams, when they're building it, don't recognize that. Like, for example, like if we're looking at this Super Bowl that's being built over here.
Yeah, look at the draft we're in right now. There's some people who have no chance of building their things.
So if we look at what Joe has right here, is Joe's going to build a back end Chicago. Did not get Colston Loveland yet.
Colston Loveland's on the board, dude. I'm going to.
Hopefully he can. But he doesn't really have an AFC side. But here's the other piece to think about, right? Is that if you build out a mega, right? As we say, the megas. If you build out a mega, then you only have to take 1 or 2 other pieces from the other team and hope that smacks. For example, Seattle, Jacksonville. So Sam Darnold's super cheap. If Sam Darnold gets matched up against Jacksonville in the Super Bowl, Sam Darnold's probably going to have a pretty good game. But if Sam Darnold gets matched up against Buffalo in the Super Bowl, he's not. But the problem is he's a week 1 buy. So if you're investing in the week 1 buy, you're also putting your bucket into a team that you might never get points out of because you may not advance. And that's the hardest thing about drafting those the bye week people is that you draft all these Denver guys and you might not even make it past the first round if you've also
like I did one last week that was Denver Seattle. And collectively I had 7 players from them.
And it's cooked. You're out.
Yeah.
And that happens right off the rip. You could be out before it even starts, and we all know that. So, like, looking again, I'm trying to find the stat rate that I had last week.
But Bob, to your point, I have 5 Bears right now. I just need one player from the NFC to get there. So
or the AFC.
Houston makes it, or correction, if Houston's there or if New England's there, because it's my flex. It doesn't even matter which one it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, hold on. All right, so yeah, so you again, when it comes to the stats, right, is that I also want as many pass catchers as I can. So in DraftKings, that kind of gets taken care of because there's more rounds. But in Underdog, it's a little bit trickier because there's fewer rounds. There's 2 fewer rounds. So your diversification has to be kind of unique in some capacity. Let's say, for example, the Patriots make it, right? And let's say it's Patriots-Rams. Who are going to be the best performers in that game? Well, there's a good chance that 2 of those tight ends are going to score, and you want a little bit of that. But a lot of people aren't drafting all of those tight ends, right? So you can get a little bit of variation by drafting Tyler Higbee. You could get a little bit of variation by drafting Davis Allen. Some weird bullshit can always happen in the Super Bowl. So you need to be aware of those things that could happen and where these players are most likely going to smack, right? Like I have no problem taking Carolina piece because Tet has a very good chance to get over 100 yards this week. Tet's not going to make it through the next round, but he can advance potentially some Chargers who might not perform as adequately as you might want. Is it crazy that for real I think the Texans could make the Super Bowl? No, we talked about that before, is that the teams that I think are most likely to make it, Buffalo, Jags, Rams, Seattle, Houston. And I think when we look at it throughout the span of time, that defense really does truly win championships unless you're Tom Brady. And you want to have a defense that is going to be able to go up against these offenses and do well against them. And we'll get to the other questions and comments that are down there. But I just want to say this again, right? When we look at pass attempts and we look up the top 5 teams that have allowed a lot of pass attempts recently, it's Jags, San Fran, Chicago, Houston, and Steelers. The next one up is the Rams. If you look at the bottom 5 out of these teams with pass attempts, it's Buffalo, Philly, New England, Carolina, and the Chargers. Well, looky, New England is facing up against the Chargers. Okay, well, that's a pretty good matchup then. When we look at it from the running back perspective, New England allows a lot of rush attempts to running backs. 25. Who else does that? Carolina and Green Bay. So, like, there is a pathway here for a team like Chicago to beat Green Bay in the first round. You advance a bunch of those pieces, and they might be integral to helping you advance, let's say some Rams that might underperform this week, right? Family, so you have to assume the Super Bowl at worst has one bye week team, can't do both. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think it's fair that, again, like I had built out prior to the bye weeks, Denver, Seattle. I built out Seattle, Buffalo. And it's just all depends on how you can get those pieces too, right? We talked last week about a guy like Shakir. Shakir does not score a lot of points. He can against Jacksonville, but if he faces off against if your Super Bowl is Buffalo and Philly, I don't want Shakir. Shakir's not going to do anything against Philly's defense. If it's Buffalo 49ers, sure, give me all the Shakir. So it really depends upon the narrative that you're and I've seen this, family. Yesterday, I actually saw this. I saw somebody draft Mitch Trubisky. And if Allen gets hurt middle of the game and they make it to the Super Bowl, Mitch is coming in and he's going to win it for you. Can you rule out 5 teams you can't see making it? I don't see the Packers. Easy. I don't see the Packers making it because I just don't think that they're strong enough on defense, but I do think they're leverage pieces. For all of you guys that use the sidekick had been pushing out the
Packers.
And so you're not getting any leverage on the Packers. Oh, here's the stat. Okay. And this stat.
Oh, but family, the 5 that I think I can roll out, I'm pretty sure I can roll out the Chargers because I think New England is going to roll. I think that I can roll out Carolina pretty easily. As much as I don't want to admit it, I think that the Steelers don't have a chance. I think there's I look at this the other way, family. What places can no one go in and win? Boston is one of those places.
I disagree.
I think Boston is. I think there's a very.
They are going to be hyped as all hell, though. They are going to be super hyped.
It's a very hard place to go and win. The NFC, I don't think Seattle is as hard as it is in New England to go and win. I think Philadelphia is the hardest one to go and win in the NFC.
I think Seattle.
I think 3 seed.
I think Seattle and Philly are probably 2 of the harder places to play in the NFC.
No, I get that, but for Philly to host a second game, they need a wild card upset. And so in fact, actually, they need 2 wild card upsets, and I don't think that's happening. So I don't think there's the second wild card upset would have to be them because I don't see a chance that the Packers win.
All right, so
this is the other reason, by the way. The reason I'm on Chicago so heavy, even though you guys have heard me all year hate on Caleb Williams and at Roy hasn't stopped, is because they're getting out of the first round. And they're going to blow up the Bears. So are the Rams. The Rams and Bears are going to tear it off the cover, and I want to invest in those 2 teams heavily. Because I think you're going to get a lot of builds that are
from the perspective that I was talking about earlier. Here's another pathway to take, family, and this is the other piece. This is the other piece of the pie that sometimes is missed out when we're talking about these drafts.
The Bills can't host the game, family.
No, he knows that. He knows that, but you were saying that the Patriots, that Boston's one of the harder places in the AFC to play in. Buffalo is probably
not with a broken Allen, and that's what we all going to admit. Allen's broken. He's not worth being a first-round pick.
Joe, let me just talk to you for a minute.
Talk it out, baby. Talk it out.
Okay. When we look at possible Super Bowl matchups, let's say the matchup that you get is Chicago, Buffalo.
That's a lot of points.
Tell me the pieces that you want from that matchup.
Well, I want Cook first pick. Let's do a draft back and forth. I want Cook.
I don't even have to do a draft back and forth. I'm just saying, name me the players.
It's Cook, and then for DraftKings, Loveland's the tight end you want, obviously. I think both the receivers come from Chicago, too, that you'd want. And then the quarterback would be out. At that point, Allen would have to be healthy, so the quarterback would be Allen. That would be your perfect 5 from that game.
So in an ideal Super Bowl that is Chicago, Buffalo, you can't build it.
Because you can't get Allen Cook.
Okay.
I don't know if there's that big of a drop-off between Caleb and Allen, though.
Conceivably, conceivably that would have already potentially have been built. But I would argue to you that because Chicago has been allowing more targets per game and Buffalo hasn't, that the pathway that you would want to take if you were to build that Super Bowl out would be that you would want to ignore James Cook. You would want to draft Josh Allen, and then you would want to draft advanced pieces until you wanted to take DeAndre Swift. And you would want to take—
that's my argument for how I built this team.
Right? That would be what I would want. Oh, Buffalo beat them in Boston. Yeah. That would be what I would want to do, is that I would want to ignore Cook in that. If I thought I'm building out a Chicago Buffalo Super Bowl, I want to ignore James Cook and I want to get Josh Allen, because I have two pieces from the other side, DeAndre Swift and Monungai, that are comparable to the amount of carries that James Cook could get. And I would want to kind of only take maybe Luther Burden in that perspective from wide receivers, and maybe invest a little bit more in Buffalo's wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Now, let's do this again as we talk about these teams here. A Pittsburgh, Seattle, Denver build, it's very possible that Pittsburgh players can get you out of this next round.
I think it's possible Pittsburgh wins this game.
That Kenny Gainwell, it's also possible, based off of what we saw from Houston, is that a guy like Calvin Austin could potentially blow the top off of Houston if given the opportunity.
Well, that's what Metcalf would do, yeah.
I'm curious what will happen there. But before we get into this next thing, Joe, this comes from Legendary Upside. And this stat that I'm about to read is to say how 5 live players makes a difference, okay? And for everybody out there, take this. This comes from Legendary Upside. But out of the gauntlet, which is the $25 tournament on Underdog, okay, 40 teams of the teams that advanced had 0 live players. So you'll win money, but you can't win it. 24 of them have 1. 30 had 2. 39 had 3. 13 of them had 4. And 9 of them had 5. And only 8 out of those 9 teams had a quarterback remaining.
Who was the Super Bowl last year?
This was this was published. This is not from 2024. This is from 2023. This was from Hurts Mahomes. Okay. But those statistics from 2023 to 2024 can't have changed that much.
Well, so, the quarterback element is because you're describing essentially the elements of a draft. Because in this year's case, if it ends up being like the Rams, it'll be very impossible to have 4 Rams and Stafford, including Stafford. Like, it's virtually impossible.
But I've built it. It happens.
Well, like I said, that's where you get these random rooms where people stay in their lane and you can really get some craziness. That's why I prefer no one staying in their lane and then figuring out what happens at the end.
But there's also the advanced rate monsters, right? Where there's a chance that you won't get anybody through of consequence. So last year, February 9th, 2025, it was Philly Chiefs Super Bowl.
I mean, all it takes is one of these games where someone says, we ain't playing defense, we're just doing a track meet. Especially if it's a game no one expects, and it's over.
That's
realistically, if the Chargers get sacked like crazy the whole first half, and New England is up 21-0 at halftime, they're phoning it in the second half. They're just running it out.
But here, let's talk for a minute.
That's what most playoff games end up doing. Very few do you see a true shootout.
Let's talk for a minute.
One developed in Chicago.
Let's go back to the Super Bowl last year, and those stats were right, by the way. I read the year wrong on it. So let's go to the Super Bowl last year, and I believe we had a good smattering of DeAndre Hopkins and Xavier Worthy last year. And I believe we had a good smattering of A.J. Brown. So in the Super Bowl, A.J. Brown scored, Devonta Smith scored, Jalen Hurts scored, and that was it. On the Chiefs side of the ball, we had Xavier Worthy scored 2 touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins scored a touchdown. So there is reason to believe that if you didn't have Xavier Worthy going into the Super Bowl last year, you weren't winning, right? And we had a lot of Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins stacks, but our Xavier Worthy teams didn't advance. And we also didn't advance enough of them with Patrick Mahomes, which you needed in order to score the most points on the week. Going back then to the 2024 Super Bowl, which was the Chiefs versus the Niners, looking at that score, who would you have needed to advance? Well, Juwan Jennings threw a touchdown and caught a touchdown. You would have needed him. CMC, touchdown, but Brock Purdy getting you there versus Patrick Mahomes. Well, look at the Patrick Mahomes side of the ball. Travis Kelce had 9 receptions for 93 yards, but Mecole Hardman and Marquise Valdez-Scantling scored the touchdowns. So, like I'm saying, if it is a Patriots Super Bowl, there's enough of those lower-level guys that could paint a picture for you, but you can't take too many of them because you need to have those advance rate pieces in the first place.
That's exactly it.
And if that offense sputters, you don't want to have too many of those pieces. And we got caught in this trap last year as well. You don't want to have too many of those pieces because some of those pieces aren't going to do anything. But in the case of the Rams, for example, losing out on Kyron, like I built a team, and I showed this to you the other day, Joe. I built out basically the whole Rams. I was able to get all of the Rams. So if they are great and nobody else scores highly in the wild card round, there's a good chance that I'm going to advance most of those Rams. And if you have 8 Rams and they make it to the Super Bowl, you're probably going to win.
Yeah, I think that, quite frankly, 5 is the max you should have of any individual team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But it also allows you to build out the other side of the ball. So
it does.
In Underdog, for example, it's really hard to build out teams with Seattle, okay, because you only have 10 rounds. And the pieces that you want if Seattle were to make it to the Super Bowl, you want Sharps, you want Ken Walker, you want JSN, and you want AJ Barner. But because they're not in that first round, what team on the opposite side do you want to try to build out? And can you maximize the amount of players from that team and Seattle plus getting advanced rate pieces? It's going to be tricky. And that's where, like, on DraftKings, it's much easier to build out Carolina, like a Tet or a Rico or a Chuba as like a really back end piece. Like the Steelers were basically free before the game yesterday, but now they're not free anymore. So Carolina still is. So if you want like a simple advance rate piece like Tet on DraftKings, it's easy to do. But on Underdog, to get 5 live players is consequently a bit more harder because you have to really nail on the head the offense that is going to steamroll and then have also your Super Bowl advanced pieces. So like Bears, for example, right, Joe, is if you bought into Colston Loveland on Underdog where you're not required to take a tight end, building out Dalton Kincaid versus building out Colston Loveland, even if you think Buffalo's going to make it to the Super Bowl, do you think that Dalton Kincaid will be super involved in a Super Bowl? That's the other thing that you have to think about with some of these things. It's like,
here's the ultimate pathway for the highest scoring Bears Super Bowl. It would be Bears obviously win in a shootout. The Niners take out the Phillies defense, and Carolina somehow wins. That would make them go to Carolina or host Carolina in the second round, and then ideally San Francisco makes the NFC Championship, Bears, Niners. That's their least defensive route to get there. Is it possible? Not the Rams losing, but the rest of it is.
Mhm.
And that could be them themselves carrying the pathway. And you want to go through each team looking at this. This is why at the end of the day, I think that even though they're getting built like crazy, the New England Rams combo is the best one. Because New England gets a soft defense off the bat with the Chargers. They're probably getting the Bills, who they score a lot against, or the Steelers, who they will run right through in the second round. And then you're at a 50-50 shot in the AFC Championship. That's why I think New England, as much as I hate it as a Steelers fan.
So the other side of the coin to think about too, Joe, is just building for the NFC Championship. So if you have,
and I think, well, in terms of championship, I think the AFC Championship is easier to project. So it'll be New England and probably Jacksonville.
If you have the two live teams from the NFC or AFC Championship, right, and you build out that roster, you are, and we've talked about this last year too. If you go back in and watch the shows from last year, is we talked about building from that perspective, is that you are going to guarantee, if it, again, there's no guarantees, but if those teams end up making it, right, you are guaranteeing yourself 4 live players, 3 live players potentially.
Oh yeah, if you're able to nail it, yeah.
But what we know is that you need 5. Ideally, you want 6 or 7 live players in the Super Bowl. But you gotta have the quarterback.
But no, you can't advance with 6. You just read your statistics. 0 had 6.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like,
you can't do it.
You ideally, in an ideal world, that's what you want to do. But what I'm saying, Joe, is that out of these,
I want flying unicorns, but I can't have them. They're just something you got to build your team right so you get there.
We could talk about this again another time too, but the fact of the matter remains is that when we look at these tournaments, when we look at how these teams advance, right, is that.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mick. As soon as I said that, I realized it. Because they're the 2 and 3 seed, they'd have to play each other next week. Thank you for pointing that out.
And I think that that's great for Jacksonville if Jacksonville is able to win that. But when we look at it and we say from a player perspective, is that what players are going to be able to be successful from a fantasy perspective at their position. And that's kind of like the reason why, again, Puka's drafted number 1 almost universally, other than Christian McCaffrey, is that he is the wide receiver in most matchups that has the chance to go off, right? So if they end up making it to the Super Bowl, even if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, you can pivot off Puka very, 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 very easily, right? Mick here likes Jacksonville at plus money against the Bills. Probably going to hope it gets juiced up more and bet on it. I don't see a problem.
I agree with that.
And even the when we look at the Chicago Bears win this week, looking good, looking sexy. What will happen there, right? I'm just going through a couple of my teams here, Joe. In my ones that I drafted prior to us really knowing what was going on. I got a couple of Drake May teams in here in these tournaments. Apply. Not any in the early ones. But he is not like one of my highly drafted players. So if we go to like my exposure now, what'd you say?
So, and that's completely fine.
On my
that either.
So on my underdog right now, these are my highest drafted players. So on underdog right now, these are my highest drafted players: James Cook, Parker Washington, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, Cortland Sutton, Hampton, Hurts, and then a bunch of then wide receivers: Goddard, Brian Thomas, Brenton Straight, Jacoby Myers, Quentin Johnston. My lowest drafted players that are, like I said, I drafted some Tampa Bay, some Kansas City whenever those were drafted. I got 1 share of Tyrell Shavers, 1 share of Ricky Pearsall, Calvin Austin. Hi, buddy. How are you feeling? Yeah. Do you want to say hi to everybody? Come in. They haven't seen you in a long time. Say hi, everybody. Say go sports. Did you see the R's and the keys? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Letters. These are all letters.
And the teacher of Bob that never stops.
All letters. Say hi, everybody. Say go sports.
Good choice.
He's dealing with a cold that Daddy probably gave him.
Nice.
You know. But here, Ben can't say they can't beat the Eagles, and who knows once it's the conference finals. And that's exactly the thing, Mick. So, like, when you're building out some of these teams, I think it's fair to think about your possible Super Bowl matchup and go into that. And it's kind of why, like, I have so much Jacksonville, is that the Jacksonville piece of it was so cheap earlier, and it continued to be cheap. And now,
a long time.
And now I have a lot of it. And I'm hoping, but I also, like I said with Buffalo, is that I don't really see any asset other than James Cook or Josh Allen as being the guy that I desperately need in the Super Bowl. So it's like, do I want to overinvest in Buffalo players that I don't think legitimately have a chance of scoring? Because those definitely aren't going to be the guys that can advance me. You get what I'm saying, Joe?
I completely agree with you, Bob. Completely agree with you.
Yeah, Louis, give us a hot take. I love hot takes.
Hot take it up, Louis.
Those are my favorite kind of takes. Mick almost never takes Allen. I always go Cook late and hope to get Allen, have like 4 of those. And Mick, that's the other thing too, is that the likelihood that you get Cook back after not taking Allen is not high, because it's very important, especially in an underdog, to have the running back. But the other thing to think about too is that Cook is so much better than Ty Johnson and so much better than Ray Davis this year. But if you do think Buffalo's going to make it to the Super Bowl, and let's say they face off against the Bears or Seattle, would I rather have Cook or would I rather have Allen? Cook allows you to build more diversified lineups. That's
100% true, Mick. And Bob just hit that on the head. Now, Louis, to your top cake here, I want to point this out. Top 4 quarterback in the playoffs. The point of this is why I argue that a one-build team, as long as your guy advances, is fine. Is because the tangible spread from really number 3 and 4 of this group to 12 is pretty small. So that's not exactly a high hurdle to be a top 4 quarterback in any given week. So with that being said, I don't think it's a hot take to say any quarterback will be a top 4 or any quarterback would be a bottom 4, with the exception of maybe Bryce Young, because that guy is inevitably going to come in last. But guys, we got to wrap it up here on that one. We'll see you guys on Wednesday, 3:45. Make sure you guys click that old like and subscribe button. Check out the replays, and we will talk to you then.
All right. Peace out.